Hello and welcome to another Lighthouse Wellness Community podcast. My name is Donald McCone.
My name is Frank O'Connor. This program is designed to encourage open conversation around wellness, mindfulness and healing. As part of the Irish diaspora, Donna and I would like to bring an Irish dimension to this conversation. Our hope is to break through the stigma around mental health issues and to bring awareness to the many ways to recovery and to a healthy way of life.
And a very good afternoon to you. Beautiful,
Good afternoon, Donna.
beautiful sunny day today.
It's gorgeous out there. Probably low 80s, clear blue skies. Beautiful.
I'm sure elsewhere in this listening podcast, particularly if you're in San Francisco, it could be a windy day. It's been rather windy around there. But the weather doesn't matter. The external doesn't matter. We're going to talk about the internal.
Yeah, this is the fascinating one, Donna. We've had some requests. I certainly have had. A long time ago, we touched on one of our podcasts, which is called Who Am I? And I wanted, through request, but I also wanted to revisit that because essentially, you and I could spend the next month on this one. So my thought is, and I'll just see what your thought is, my thought is to because you can go at this question in so many different ways. My thought is to go at it from a self-inquiry, just an inquiring. So a lot of questions will be asked. Again, you don't have to get immediate answers, but if our audience can stay with us through the questioning, it could get very interesting. So I want to just throw that out there first.
So what do I think about that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
We'll go there.
Do you have a different perspective on it, maybe?
No, I think the Who Am I requires you to question yourself, and it helps sometimes to get the voice of another to kind of help you answer those questions, or at least an alternate way of thinking that you've been doing so far. It's that kind of philosophy of if you continue to do the things that you're doing, nothing will change. You need a little spice to kind of spice that up and to rethink and to think from a different perspective.
Yeah, and seeing things. It reminded me great of a quote, excuse me, within one of the 12-step recovery programs. Can't remember which one. So many now, but it doesn't really matter. Somebody was asked, why is your life to a recovering person? Why is your life so different? You look completely different. Your behavior is completely different. What's going on? And the guy simply said, well, it's as a result of walking a spiritual path, trying to live life from a different perspective. And he said, if I was to refine it down to its very simplest form, I would say it's simply like putting on a new pair of glasses because you see everything completely differently. And that's a great way to start it.
There's a Wayne Dyer quote, I'm sure I've used it before. If you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. That's from the opposite perspective. So if you're changing your outlook, whatever happens out there, if you like, changes. And vice versa, if you change your way of thinking inside, those people looking in at you will see a different person and hopefully a revived person. So, either way, the both quotes work.
That also, I'm going to take that idea a little step deeper. For example, I have a dream or an imagination, or I think or see something internally. So my question now is a simple one. Who or what is the thing that's doing the seeing? So the image is there, the imagery, whether it's dreaming or thinking or mental gymnastics, whatever it may be, there's something behind that that's looking at what's being seen. So that gets us to a much deeper level. So that would be one deep question to ask. Because many of us, hands up, me included, for so many years believed that the thoughts were me. We hear people talk all the time about watch out for the monkey mind, or the mind that just keeps revolving over and over and over again, or obsessing on several different things. And then, in my case, believing that confusion was who I truly am. That's not how I see it today, but just posing that question now.
Yeah, I saw a quote I think you put up on the Facebook page on that very subject, that the thoughts that you have aren't you. The thoughts are just thoughts. Some of them are quite useful to have if they project you into a new way of being and a new way of positive thinking. But if they're negative, you kind of got to question them and say, these are coming from what? These are coming from a basis of what? Of no knowledge or a little knowledge tarnished perhaps with a negative experience. Isn't that
Yeah,
usually
I
the
mean,
way?
absolutely. I mean, there's scientific research now. Just reading about it recently, where some of the brain scientists were trying to find the origin of where's our thinking coming, and they're literally saying now there is no origin. This stuff is just spontaneously firing off out of nowhere, with no good reason, and yet we're so bought into it that I'm believing that's who I am.
So then it becomes very important to kind of question your thoughts. And this doesn't have to be the deep rigor of every single thought that you have. You have to analyze them to the nth degree. But some thoughts come up continuously. They reoccur. They come back again. It's when that happens that you kind of question, what is this telling me?
Exactly. I mean, my thinking, as I've said before in one of our podcasts, and a friend of mine had said it to me many times, always remember, Frank, your thinking is not necessarily your best friend. And his example was, think about some of the times where you were in deep suffering or deep pain. At that time, was your thinking beneficial to you? And my answer would be, absolutely not. It was diving me deeper into a hole. So then coming beyond that, and today being able to say, that's a thinking process, but that's not who I am today. And your point is, which brings me to mindfulness and meditation. What is the process there? Mindfulness in particular, observation of the thinking, observation of the thoughts, being the witness to say, I see you guys, I know you're there, and I acknowledge your presence. I'm not trying to discount you in any way, but as an observer, I'm also realizing you are not me.
For so many years, and I'm decidedly coming to your way of thinking on that. And maybe I came kicking and screaming. Letting go is what that kind of process of meditation is about. Just letting go of that position, letting go that I'm the rational, super intelligent person that can run my life. Standing back from that and just letting it flow. It's a hard-learned lesson for some people, and yet it's an easy enough process if you give it an opportunity.
I mean, I look at my own self and my own life, and sometimes I'll ask that question, gosh, Frank, why did we take so long in my 60s before I realized these things that we're talking about now, particularly in relation to thinking? And as you know, I'm a certified mindfulness teacher, but one of our classes this week here in Petaluma, one of the guys who I know, I'd met him through my music playing, so he knew me in a very different context. You know, Frank the entertainer, and then he sees Frank the meditation teacher. But one of the really interesting things he said to me, he said, Frank, the reason I came to the class tonight was because I cannot stop my mind. And I understand when he said that, totally get that. And he said, at the end of your class, I was here for an hour, and I'm not saying that I wasn't thinking for the entire hour, but however, I got a good 20 minutes of relief and release and the experience of not being caught up in the thinking mind. And for him, that was like, whoa, that was an enlightening time for him. That's why I teach meditation, because I know that experience to be true for myself.
Well, we've both gone through times where the thinking has taken over everything and taken us to dark places. Getting back to kind of meditation has been the secret for you, certainly, and it's becoming that way with me. I mean, I had some meditation before I came out today. I can't say I got the whole hour that I set to do it, but I got 15 minutes and then another
Fantastic.
15 minutes, and very settling. I suppose maybe it's very difficult to give advice because who am I to give advice? Just experiential is all I can say. Is that basically the thinking process is useful, but it's not the be all and end all, and it's not the definition. And this is back to the who am I. It's not the definition of who I am. But can it bring us back to the definition? Can we play around with our thoughts, or can we dismiss them altogether? Is there a balance somewhere between all of this?
I want to go down a line of inquiry, which I think we did before, but it's worth kind of going at it this way. A new baby is born. At that moment in time, there's not a whole lot going on in the thinking mind. There's pretty much a purity and a presence living in a physical body, and not much else. And I think most people could probably agree with that. So the questioning now begins. How did you get your name? And in my case, some people, my mom and my dad and a midwife came together and all in agreement said, let's call him Frank. Or Francis, after St. Francis actually is what it was. And the midwife said, I like that name, that's a good name, I'll write that down. So several people came to an agreement that I would be called Francis. Even that's not who I am, but they became, right, that was their agreement. Then commenced a series of years where I was like a sponge, as all babies and infants are, absorbing information. It didn't matter where that information was coming from. It didn't matter in any way, shape, or form whether it was correct or incorrect. I absorbed all of it, without exception. And I began to believe much of it to be absolute truth. In the way that in the modern world of computers, there's a wonderful saying that says, how you program the computer is extremely important. That famous statement, garbage in, garbage out. If somebody puts in wrong information, in other words, if you feed a computer and say 2 plus 3 equals 17, that's the answer that will be given as absolute correct. At some stage then, as I grew up, my questioning would be, the questioning began as a teenager in particular. Wait a minute. And you and I growing up in the 60s was great because in a way, inquiry was the deal at that time. What are we believing? How much of this is true? How much of it is not true? And that went in for me into a personal, beginning of the personal. Exactly how much of what I've been taught is truth? How much of what the religious people told me, and particularly for us growing up in Ireland, where it was the Pope is infallible, you cannot question anything, faith is everything, and the standard thing, and we were all questioning it in high school, I remember being told, you're a Catholic, belief in your faith, that's all you need. But you know, as a human being and me, something was spinning in the background all the time. Whoa. I need to question some things. So then it comes up to the basic questions. What is my personality? Where did that come from? Who or what information led to the belief of what that is? What is my belief system? Where did that come from? Who are the people who poured that information into me? Was any of it incorrect? What is the thinking mind that you and I spoke about just a few moments ago? How much of that, just spontaneously firing off all the time, is information that may be incorrect? So the self-inquiry part of it, exactly who am I? Where have I come from? And even watching that inquiry, who at the back of that is observing all of that going on?
It's the question many kind of people pose. I mean, who am I somewhere in the background? I mean, it's a common one of just thinking about something, and then I should do this or I should do that. Who's the person thinking the I behind that? Always that. I've had the same journey as yourself, Frank, of questioning much of what has been programmed into me. That garbage in, garbage out. Thankfully, I'm choosing to believe a lot of it is positive, as I'm sure you do as well. It's just when the negative kind of emerges and you've got the prejudice, you've got the prejudged situation. The judgment has nearly been made before you even got a chance to think about it. So yes, paring back all of that. It doesn't have to be ruthless. That's, I suppose, the point that I make. Or it doesn't have to be ruthless and all done at once. Because there will be many people who are probably, because they're on that journey or watching this or listening to this, doesn't have to be ruthless, doesn't have to be with a big chainsaw that you cut away all of those ties with the past, but certainly a loose paring to start off with, if you continue that analogy. It's just actually doing it and realising that it's worth doing. That's the point that maybe we should be getting people to. And the very best of techniques is to meditate, is to allow those thoughts to disappear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not in any way questioning somebody's, or even my own, the systems that were given to me. For example, I would say to somebody like who may be in my acquaintances, friends, family even, who have a deep belief in Catholicism, for example. I respect that. I have no desire to change anything about that for you, for the other person. But my self-inquiry is important for me. It's called self-inquiry for it's not an idea of trying to change anybody else. So the questioning, the self-inquiry for me is, what serves the purpose? What is in my best interest? What serves me well in being a constructive human being who can feel good about himself and can contribute then to other people? Because I think if I get to a space where I'm peaceful within myself but not contributing, I may have missed the boat somewhere. So I truly, for me, believe that the step is become well myself, understand who I am, where I've come from, and who I choose to be today, because I believe it is a choice. And then having got that, begin to pass that out to other people.
The core values, I've mentioned it before, of neuro-linguistic programming, that idea of reprogramming yourself through the language that you use or identifying what doesn't work for you. The core value should be the beliefs that I have, do they serve me well, first of all? And secondly, that what I believe and what I do, does it serve you well and does it serve me well? Exactly the principles that you're talking about. And that's in a proactive kind of way of kind of reconstructing this piece inside here. So in that, and it's not scientific in the sense of heavy documentation, but proves in practice that's what works for improving your immediate situation. It doesn't delve into the kind of the spiritual dimension, but surely somewhere within that there's the kind of spiritual connection. There has to be doing good for others, doing good for yourself. That's not a concept that comes from anywhere other than, I think, a higher belief and a higher power, if you like.
Yeah, but there's not an indigenous people living on our planet who, going back thousands of years even, prior to religion, let's just leave any kind of religion out of it, who did not have some concept of community. We have to work together. We have to be decent and beneficial to our fellow human being as well. So I think it's almost inbuilt in our DNA. I wanted to take that in self-inquiry even a step further, because like you said, if I can go to the mindfulness or the meditation part, because that's truly where it's at. If I can sit for a moment with myself and be the observer, like we talked about. Oh, here come the thoughts. Hi, guys. Nice to see you again. Oh, here comes it. Oh, yeah. For example, what happened? Oh, gosh, did I pay that bill? I wonder why that phone call was kind of weird. I wonder why did he say that to me? He has no right to be talking to me in that way. I got to do that too. And on. This whole thing from thinking about other people, thinking about myself, what I have to do, what I should do, what I haven't done, what I should have. The shoulds become a huge part. So the mindfulness is simply saying, in the present moment, as an observer of all those thinking things going on, floating by, I can sit at peace and be just the presence, the observer. And much of that, it's an interesting process because initially it seems like the control belongs to the thinking. The thinking has control of me. But as I observe and slow it down and just let it be, not even in a way to control or fence it in, but just observe, it begins to ease off and slow down and begins to move away. And sometimes a good way to do that is just using breath, going to breath, counting breath, observing breath as a way to just let that thinking stuff float on.
The funniest thing is that we breathe naturally without thinking, without coming up.
That's the point.
And yet the whole point of what your exercise is to kind of bring you back to something that's going on automatically. It seems not a contradiction, but it's an interesting kind of thing.
Yeah, that's exactly the point of the breathing. I don't have to think. I do not have to think because breathing is happening. Just observe it, watch it, count it even, just so the mind has a place to go. One of the folks this week again at our Celtic mindfulness meditation in Petaluma, which by the way is every Wednesday at 7 p.m. If you're in Sonoma County at One Mind Dharma, please come join us. One of the sections that we do 3 sections. The first section is a guided mindful meditation. The second section, first section is you're guided, so you just follow along. Second section is Celtic music. So the nice thing about that is you don't have to think. Let that be your focal point. Bring the awareness just to the music and relish in it and enjoy it. The third part is chanting. And I use our Gaelic, our home language, our Irish, and some chants, ancient chants from the Celtic peoples. And I chant for about 10 or 15 minutes. One of the ladies came over to me and said, I never thought about this, but it was so perfect in line with what you just said. She said, the great thing about the chanting, Frank, in the Gaelic language, Irish Gaelic language, was I didn't know what you were saying, but I could feel the vibration. And I didn't have to think about what was going on because I had no idea what, I did explain later what the words meant. But the cool thing was, just the vibration, the chant was able to take attention away from thinking.
It's the same principle as the Om, as
same.
it were, or the bowls that you make
Singing
the
bowls,
with, the singing bowls. It's exact, and it's amazing how. Well, it's not amazing any longer because I've kind of understand now that it resonates with me at a level that I haven't thinking for, I have feeling for. So it's into a slightly different realm, but it's a commonality of feeling, and it's been used for centuries for healing, hasn't it, really?
And the really interesting thing, the expression I was using was Mulla Doyia, which means essentially the presence. I recognize and give thanks to the presence of God within you. There's many ways of saying that, but that's essential. It's like Namaste.
Namaste, yeah.
So, in all of the indigenous religions, I didn't know this, it's fascinating to me. In Gaelic, for example, Yah, is God. In the Jewish religion, Jehovah, Yahweh, Yah, the sound, what you just said earlier on, Aum, some people think it's Om, it's actually Aum, the A sound is there, the sound is there, Aum, Jia, Yahweh. I mean, it's just every indigenous people has that sound, and for God or for higher power,
which could easily be interpreted as just breath. Well, the intake of breath. I'm being a scientist here, and I'm not really.
The breath of life. I mean, we talk about it all the time.
And it's the commonality between all men. It's breath.
And you think about just go, how many times do we do that?
Letting it go, yeah, absolutely. So who am I?
So again, it's
the only question that's really worth asking. I haven't got the solution for anybody else, but I know that it's working for me. Who am I?
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw out that self-inquiry because there are many people walking many, many paths. Great story about the guys all climbing the Himalayan mountains. but coming at it from different directions. And there was one guy running around on the bottom section, very busy, telling everybody that they were on the wrong path. So the only one who was absolutely in total confusion was the guy running around saying, you're on the wrong path. Everybody's on their own individual path. We're doing fine. Thank you for the information. So again, whatever path somebody might be on, all I'm saying today, really, what we're both saying, is take some time out to self-inquire. Take some time out to ask the question. Take some time out to be with self, to sit with the presence that's beyond thought, that's beyond imagination, that's beyond thinking, but is there.
Thank you for another fascinating discussion. I'm sure we'll have more in a similar basis. Meditation, we're looking to bring the meditation in a different format and a different style.
Yeah, that's worth it. Thank you, Donna. Really worth mentioning, folks. We've had some requests over and over about can we access your meditations, which we were doing at the end of each podcast. And the answers now will be absolutely yes. We're going to start probably next week recording specific meditations, and Donna will get them up on YouTube so they're accessible for everybody. And hopefully we'll start that within the next 7 or 8 days, I would say. Yeah.
So look forward to that. My name is Donald McCone. Thank you for listening to another Lighthouse Wellness Community podcast.
My name is Frank O'Connor. May you be at peace. May all beings be at peace and comfortable with themselves today. Namaste.